honest conversations with interesting people. Hi, I'm Mike from the Genuine Chit Chat podcast, and I talk to a wide variety of guests across an eclectic range of interesting topics. People I've spoken to include a magister from the Church of Satan, a blind Australian filmmaker, a puppeteer from Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, and I also speak to musicians of all kinds of genres, authors, actors, podcasters. Really, there is no limit to who I speak to, and the subject matter is endless. So if you believe in the art of conversation and want to hear different people talking about their passions, then this is the perfect show for you. You can find Genuine Chit Chat anywhere you listen to podcasts, and there's some video versions on YouTube, so there's no reason not to tune in.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Comics Spotlight. So where we do a deep dive into the ongoing series of graphic novel from a company other than the big two. This is the best of the rest. And now, here we are. This is technically the 91st episode of this podcast. He's 90 episodes later. The Mouth from Manchester has returned. Christian Phelps. Hello, sir.
Hello, Tony. And that also is a indictment that I'm a terrible podcast guest because I've got that much podcast going on. I am rubbish at coming on people's shows.
You
I
are
apologize.
So no, you and Dave, like, I don't even
Apologize.
understand. Like, I'll hear Dave. He was on Brett's show the other day, the BS Report. I'm like, how does he do it? What is Dave a clone? Like, I know he's the scientist. So I feel like maybe Dave pretends he's whatever he's doing. I'm an IT, but you hear him talk. You know him best. I think he's built a clone machine.
Well, don't give me that much credit, Tony. I'm sorry. No, he does. See, so the thing is, me and Dave are like, I'm up so early every day. I'm up for work at like 3:45 every day. So a lot of the podcasts we do is when Dave has finished work and he's literally put the phone down late evening and we go, and then we do a lot of weekends as well. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I could probably do more podcasts in the day, but I feel like I haven't got my comfort blanket if it's not with Dave. So
right. Well, I appreciate that you're here with me. I'm happy. When you and Mike did Black Widow, that was excellent. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was an excellent review. I loved that movie, by the way. I thought it was really good. I know you didn't hate it. I thought it was delightful. I feel like the MCU movies, the standalone ones, are the best ones. The ones that are, I know you like the Avengers better, but I kind of like I like Black Panther. I liked Scarlet. I liked Black Widow. I liked the Captain America ones where it's just like a smaller story. Yeah.
Yep. Amazing. I agree, Tony. Thor Ragnarok's one of my best. So
absolutely.
It's a great film.
That was and because Taika's a genius as well.
Yeah.
He's so funny. He's going to do some Star Wars stuff. I guess Taika.
I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, he's going to take over the world, and that's fine. He should. We want things to not suck. Well, so here you are back 99, and it's totally fine. And I appreciate that because when I sent the message to you, Dave, I was like, hey, we should do a crossover. So this is coming out on Thursday, and then on Friday of this week, this is Halloween week when we're recording this. And so this is our Halloween episode crossover. So you and I are doing the comic, and then you and Dave are doing the movie. Have you ever recorded the movie show, or are you doing that later this week?
No, we're doing that later this week. Literally lastminute.com because I've been away. It's like,
oh right, yeah, that's right.
We've recorded once today. We're doing another one later on. So yeah, we are busy. So we say
busy. No, it's totally great. So, but it's nice to have you back. 90 episodes. 90 is and here you are. And
thank you.
You picked the good ones. I mean, we did I Kill Giants, which of course was a banger, and then now The Crow. So before we jump into the book, and I think it'll be nice as too young. I'm no longer Catholic, but would you still consider yourself Catholic? We talked about it off air. Are you one of those lapsed Catholics like me?
Yeah. So in Chris Phelps' fashion, Tony, I was brought up Catholic. My dad is not any religion. He was brought up what's called Church of England in the UK, which was a religion Henry VIII created because he couldn't get remarried in the Catholic Church, which is tremendous, a tremendous bit of work from him. To spread your own religion. But we grew up Catholic, and I'll be honest with you, my mum's Catholic, my granddad's Irish. He's still alive. He's lived in Manchester for 60 years, but it was nothing to do with the fact that we were Catholic. The horrible thing to say is we went to better schools. So when you went to a Catholic school in my area, which wasn't one of the best areas, the Catholic schools are the better schools. So hand on heart, I was actually christened Church of England when I was like a baby. But then within 2 years, my mum had had my brother. Within 3 years, there was 3 of us. So she had 2 of my brothers were born. And then she rechristened me Catholic when I was like 3 years old. So I could afford to go into this local Catholic school. But that's me. And I was an Oliver Boy, Tony. I used to serve at Mass. But in Chris Phelps style, I only did it because I got paid for it. And I used to do funerals and weddings. And I'm not going to blag you because we didn't have any money because there were so many of us as kids. It's the only income I had. So I had to do the Mass and, the incense and Holy Communion and everything. So, I've been there, done all that nonsense.
Yeah, the nonsense. Yeah, I actually, by the time I was 12 and I was supposed to get confirmed, I dodged. I never did. I never got confirmed. So I was baptized Catholic, but raised Catholic. And the reason I bring that up is because the thing that we're going to talk about, The Crow, has a lot of Catholic overtones. I thought it would be interesting. We could dig into that because there's this, I work for Catholics. The university where I work is run by Dominican sisters. So it's, so I'm surrounded by it. My mom still was Irish Catholic, and my dad was Roman Catholic, and just Catholicism everywhere. And as I'm reading this again, this book, and of course I'm from Michigan, which is where this book takes place. So it's it was hitting all the right buttons. So I'm glad it's you back here to talk to talk about vengeance and Catholicism. We'll see where those things cross over.
Why don't you tell him? One last little Christmas tidbit, and I'm not to take over, is when I was confirmed, obviously you weren't in England, we get confirmed early. So they changed it. It used to be, you took your Holy Communion when you were about 5 or 6.
Holy crap.
And then you did,
really?
And then you do your confirmation when you were 7 or 8, so you're a little bit older. They've flipped it now. You do confirmation first and then your communion, because Jordan's 21. So when she was 6, 7, it was the other way around. However, my confirmation name, because you used to have to take one, Tony, and it had to be, is Luke. And there's only one reason I called myself Luke.
Of course.
Nothing to do. I'm your father.
This is great. So my friend Keith, who's been on the show once, and he's actually coming on. He and I were just talking. He's going to be my guest for my 100th episode. We went to high school together. We're going to do Sin City. And he was on a while back on the show. But what his confirmation name was Xavier because of the X-Men.
Excellent.
So he will appreciate that you picked Luke because of Star Wars. He picked Xavier because of Charles Xavier. So that's his confirmation name, was totally based out of pop culture too. So he took it really seriously as well.
I need to speak to this man.
Yeah. Okay, well, to make that. It's pretty funny because it was just he's I got to pick one. Well, I mean, it's sitting there. I feel like I might as well. Yeah. So you can see how being raised Catholic, there are people who take it seriously, and we are not those people, but that's okay because it's going to be part of the conversation as we go. Because I think you can't, even if you're a lapsed Catholic or a fallen Catholic like we both are, it's in there a little bit. And I'm sure as you were reading this, you're like, ooh,
I've seen that before.
Reading some else, yeah, for sure. So a little bit of background on it before I ask you about it. So this was originally published by Caliber Comics, which was a Detroit-based comic book company. And so James O'Barr is the writer and artist. The issue 1 came out in 1989. It was in Caliber Presents, and then it's gone on to all of the other things. So it's actually pretty amazing that this little tiny nothing comic from a Detroit-based comic company, Caliber, the movie came out just 5 years later. I mean, that is a quick turnaround, for considering we didn't get a first Iron Man movie until 2008, or maybe in the 60s. So it is a pretty. Is that when you first heard of The Crow? Was from the movie?
Yes. So a massive Bruce Lee fan. I remember at the time being intrigued, because obviously in 1993, when this was being filmed, it was I was well into my Van Damme phase. I'd done the Bruce Lee stuff. But Van Damme, and I said this before in the VHS podcast, that Van Damme was probably more of a martial arts hero, which is sacrilege, Tony. I know, I love Bruce Lee.
He's the man.
Movies, but the Van Damme Americanized, action stuff really resonated with me. It was just my fun.
Which is crazy that Bruce Lee is American.
I know, exactly.
Van Damme is
Belgian. Well, here's a story for you, Tony, and you're going to love this because I've told this today on our other podcast. David, right? So I'm going to call him David because he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I'm the guy, as Dave says, who jumps out of a plane without a parachute. He's the man who's checking it, and he's overcautious. I'm the idiot who just jumps head first and goes, hang on, where the hell's my parachute? We decided that we're going to be doing Death Warrant. And
right?
I said this.
I heard that.
Yeah, on VHS. It's my personal Van Damme favourite. I've watched it loads of times. I had it on VHS. I had a poster of him on the wall. I had AWOL, and I had the Death Warrant poster. So in our calendar, Dave is the man. He keeps calendars, so I know what we got to watch because I'm terrible and forget. And I always go on my calendar now. He's training me after all these years. Keep doing the calendar. So I do the calendar. I looked at it. He'd put Double Impact, and I'm like, so I messaged him. I went, I've changed it to Death Warrant. Don't be watching Double Impact. He went, no, I won't. So last night, and this was about 10 days before I went, last night he messages me and he goes, this film, unbelievable. I can see why you like it. So I'm thinking this is quite an attractive woman in it. And obviously the conversation wasn't this PC, but I was like, yeah, I may have put my shoulder out a few times to this lady when I was a kid. But anyway, so we're talking. Then he goes, what about Bolo's eye? So there's a guy in Death Warrant who's got a glass eye, this black guy in it, he's got like a glass eye in it. So I think he's talking about that. So I'm like, yeah, oh yeah. And then this morning he rings me. We always have a chat most mornings, even though we talk all the time podcasts. So we're chatting. And we're chatting away for nearly 10 minutes. This shows how bad the Van Damme films have the same story in.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I went, what about the Sandman? And he went, who the fuck's the Sandman? And I went, the Sandman, he's the main. He went, no, he fights Bolo. And I went, oh, you've watched Double Impact, haven't you? And he's like, yeah. And he's wasted an hour and a half watching a film and not even reviewing. So I said, he's had a lot of steak today, Tony, out of that. Anyway, so.
That's fantastic. I love that story.
Sorry to take us on a segue, but.
No, that's totally great.
Yeah, sorry. So and come back to The Crow. Yeah. I was really looking forward to this. And obviously, as a wrestling fan, Sting then adopted the Crow persona around about 97, 98. And that's been his gimmick ever since, because he was the blonde surfer dude for years. And then he went all dark and he was in the rafters and he had the full up. So I was really interested in the film. And I remember when it sounds horrible and we're doing this now. Obviously, there's been such a tragic incident with Alec Baldwin and that poor lady who's been shot. And it's by coincidence that we're actually doing this. We've arranged
We planned this like 2 months ago.
Yeah. And it's so eerie that this has happened just recently. But I was fascinated by what had happened to him. And so much so, Tony, that I've watched it. I've watched this for years, but I remember watching it a few times, trying to find the scene where that he gets his untimely death, which is awful. I know it's not really in the movie, but it was like it always fascinated me what had happened to him, because he was Bruce Lee's son and he took such an untimely early death.
Yeah. It's crazy.
No, it is, Tony. You're right. And when you said, let's do this, and this was a few months ago, and I was like, look, I'm going to do it. I'm a terrible guest. I want to do it. I never read any comics. I'm the movie guy. So I was interested where to go on. With me being away this week, I've read this by the pool, Tony. So I couldn't have asked for a better location to watch it, to be honest, and read it.
Yeah, because, well, you're right, you need some blightness because it is such a dark comic. So, well, that's good. So I'm glad here you are. So now here we are this many years later, and you guys are going to be doing the movie. So it'll be Crow Week on Comics in Motion. And so I guess we'll start with, what was obviously this is quite a bit different. I mean, there's some lines that are almost word for word in the movie, which is insane to me. How I love when they do that. But it is an interesting story because it's obviously a story about death, and the names of the original four issues are pain, fear, irony, and despair. So it's like this dark thing. And in the comic book, where as opposed to the movie, and we'll leave the movie stuff aside because you and Dave will talk about that. But the comic book is really just a story of vengeance, right? So the plot is the same as Eric Draven and his girlfriend fiance Shelley are murdered in the comics. They're murdered in their own car, just because these four Tintin, Tom Tom, Top Dollar, Fun Boy, and T-Bird are this gang, and they kill them and they do awful things to Shelley. And a year later, a crow carries his spirit back because he's unsettled, and he goes on a killing rampage. So that's pretty much, you think that's the summary of the book, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what did you think of the fact that like this is where the Catholicism stuff comes in? There's obviously the joke about the 3 nails. Can you put me up for the night? And there's tons of Catholic imagery there where he's standing with his arms out a lot, and he's all pale, and he's got and obviously this is very indicative of the time. This is late 80s. This dark kind of gothy emo thing was taking over. And like you mentioned, Sting, if you haven't read the comic and you know who that character is from the WWE, sorry, I'm not trying to slight WWE, but his persona that he puts on Yep. You get an idea of what that looks like. So what do you make of the fact that this is truly just a vengeance tale? Like, were you surprised by that when you were reading it? Because in the movie, there's more mysticism and whatever. And this is just like, vengeance is so strong that it can bring you back from the dead to enact it. What did you make?
Yeah. And you know what, Tony? I'll be honest. Out of the ones that I read, for today's episode, I really enjoyed the first part of it more than the others. I thought that we didn't really get the backstory of Eric and how he changed anything really until we sang into the other, the other areas, the other parts. But I did think the first one was great. And then look, the pencil lines and that. And obviously, I am not a comic book reader properly. You've at least got to put your arm up my back to read something. I'm just so lazy. I'm just a gamer. I'm a gamer and movie lover. So I will game. That's what I do. Nah, and talk too much, obviously. But it's but you're right. So to sit there and look at the imagery, there's a lot of Catholic links. I think that's great because I did think that's right. Jesus Christ on the cross. Obviously the stake through his arms would be. But I think what's interesting is for someone that was brought in 1989, and The Crow is almost like the way he's dressed. It's almost like he's trying to put his girlfriend's image onto him as well, because he's very effeminate, isn't he? Very effeminate, sorry.
Yeah.
With his makeup, everything, and his love for this girl. And obviously, it's an untimely death completely. What they do, and them guys are horrible, and it's all drug-related. These are the lowest of the low. These are scum. These are everything. Eric, even though he comes back to life, like you say, the hate resurrects him. It's interesting where they go. It's very like Hell's Kitchen where they live, and it's horrible. It's dreary.
It's Detroit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's awful. But it was really, it's an interesting snapshot. So the idea of Devil's Night in the movie that they do where the fires are burning, that's real. That is really a thing that used to happen in Detroit. Right. Yeah, and believe it or not, the Hells Angels, the motorcycle club, are the ones who stopped that from happening. So now they call it Angels Night. So like the motorcycle club parades around Detroit on Devil's Night to stop crime, to stop the fires from burning, because Detroit is just a shithole. And I mean, it's gotten much better, but at this time in the 80s, it was really, to call it Hell's Kitchen is a perfect analogy for what Detroit was like. So when he's writing this in the late 80s, Detroit that is exactly what it is. It's just a dump, and it's pretty much unsafe everywhere you go.
And it's funny, Tony, because like I say, I've never read this before ever. Yeah. Like I say, I've watched the movie. I've not seen a movie for over 20 years. So I was interested to go into it, and I thought, is he going to grab me? Is this one of the ones where I sit there and just go, oh, God, I'm going again? I'm reading it on my phone. And I've got a good size phone. So it's readable. Like I'm going up and down. I must admit, when I've done a lot of comic reading, and either something that we've reviewed with you, obviously we did like, the first episode. But
I Kill Giants.
I Kill Giants. But we've also done other stuff. We've done stuff with Max and things like that. I like having the comic in my hand. Yeah. I don't know why. Even though I'm not a comic book reader, when I was a kid, I was, and I used to read a lot of the English bloody crappy comics and stuff. But I love having that, and I do find it difficult when I'm reading it on my phone. I know these the subscription stuff because Dave sent me stuff and he's borrowed his login sometimes, and I did feel like I was missing out because I read it digitally. However, I do think the first one is excellent. Like I said, the other two I think are okay, and I have a slight problem with the third one. But I do think the first book, the first part, is excellent. I do honestly, I really do, and I think it tells such a great story that I actually was sat there like, I need to read this. I need to go on the next one, and I went straight to the second one. But when I read the second one, I then was like, oh, I'm not that bothered actually. I'll read the third one later on once I've digested it all. But I did go through the first and second one really quick. I was like, oh, this is really good. The first one especially hooked me, Tony, but I must admit.
Well, I think it's the way that it starts too. And like you mentioned, this is like the storytelling that I love. It's like we drop into it, and I'm with you. I feel like we didn't need to know it all. I mean, we need to know why he's there. Like we need to understand what his vengeance is. Because when we first see it, he shows up, and I love the first words are Jesus H. Christ. So, I mean, you can't, it's right on the nose. It's not even subtext. Yep. It's just text. We're like, Jesus Christ brought back from the dead. And it's commentary on, like what I think it's almost asking the question, right? So when you think about the story, as we both know, is, Jesus dies and he's brought back from the dead, and it's, and it's a good thing. That's a good zombie story. Whereas this is like, he's coming back from the dead for vengeance. And so to me, it's asking that question of like, what is why would you need to come back? And what, like, why wasn't Jesus pissed? He was crucified and left to burn to death, standing, in the sun on a cross. And he comes back and he forgives everybody. And Eric comes back and he can't forgive anybody. And so I don't know if it's making a comment on that story, on the rebirth myth, or if it's just saying that, well, if Jesus is love for humanity, because that's the story, right? He comes back and he's going to save us all. Well, could the exact opposite happen? That's how I kind of read it. Is that what you felt too? It's like, this is he's, almost literally the Antichrist, but even though he's still trying to do something good, so can you use evil for good?
Yes. And you know what? I think when you see these sort of movies or you read this sort of thing and you have a character like this, he is an anti-hero, but he's doing things to horrible people, almost like a Robin Hood type character.
Yeah.
He's saying, he's not taking from the rich, gives to the poor, but he's taking from the evil, basically, because these guys have killed his wife. They've killed him, but somehow he's back alive in a form, and he is a form that can hurt people. He can take bullets. And there is a conscience there. The cat is interesting because I've only watched part of the film, but the cat's there straight away in the film.
Gabriel.
Yeah. Gabriel. So, and I've seen a couple of the lines that are in the comic to what's in now. Was you class it as a graphic novel, Tony, or did you class it as comic?
Well, it was originally, it's been republished as a graphic novel as one story, but they came out as individual issues.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah. So I didn't want to be disrespectful, that's all.
No, it's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, so you're still a man, Tony, but yeah, it's true. So I think that relation to religion, with anything like this, there has to be that connection, because is he resurrected as a superhero? No. He's resurrected off hate, off vengeance, going after these people. He's got all these faculties together. Yes, I do think that reading it is a lot easier to understand how he becomes the Crow more than watching the film. And I'm not comparing it. I know we'll get into that with Dave on the show, but I do think I found it a lot easier to understand how he became the Crow. In the film, it's literally a 5-minute flicker. He's the Crow. That's it. He's
right, and they've got the girl doing the background, doing the
exactly. So it is. It's a bit of a reach more in the film. It's like, let's get to the good stuff, but we're not going to really tell a lot of what's actually happened. But I felt in the comic, in this first episode, there was loads of little Easter eggs. There was loads of laying down of his character that was really interesting, and I just found it really fascinating. And you're right, unfortunately, the religious side that we both grew up with is there, and it's front and centre. And I think as a, I'm not a practicing Catholic at all, as I said, but just going into that side of vengeance, it's interesting. It really is. And what's weird is the cat's in it more than the Crow.
Right. Yeah.
So that's weird. And the cat's like a Lyko, like a Wyatt, isn't it? In the film as everything. So I know it's symbolising a lot of different things, life and death and stuff like that. There's loads of things there that are really clever, clever.
Well, and his name is Gabriel. So if we're going to go with the religious stuff, right? So Gabriel is an archangel.
Gabriel, yeah.
Yeah. And so you can look, and I love that image. And it's a black and white comic. And that's the crazy thing. It's like, it's a black and white comic. So obviously he's all painted up. Like you said, he like has that Robert Smith from The Cure look. And in the movie, there's even a Cure song, I think, when he's painting his face. I was like, that was smart. That was good. Whoever decided to have that Cure song right at this moment when he's painting his face was smart. But yeah, he's got that look. But I do think, because it's a black and white comic, that can be a problem sometimes when it is already a dark comic. But the fact that Gabriel is a white cat and that he just jumps off the page, and I think because then again, you're talking about the religious iconography, you've got this angel, this archangel who's in the form of the cat, who's like the guiding light, because the cat was Shelley's cat, and Shelley loved the cat, and she saves the cat, and it means a lot to her, and they named it Gabriel for all of those reasons. So I think it's really important too, is like, you're right, the Crow is his connection to death, but maybe the cat is his connection to life. And it's almost as though, because the comic isn't just clear from where his power comes. And I'm with you. I feel like this is maybe saying it's coming more from even the cat and from Shelley's spirit or whatever you want to say it in the cat more than even the crow brings him back, but the cat gives him motivation and maybe like internal juice. Because there's that scene where in issue 2, Fear, where he's dancing, like he's doing, and the cat's like underfoot. And anybody who has a cat knows you don't want to dance with the cat there because it will trip you and it will break you. So, but it's a cool image where he does it because his shirt's off in that scene. All of his black clothes are off, and so it's like he's all pale and the cat's underfoot, and it's almost as though the cat is taking the place of Shelley, and they're dancing together, and it's like that's the one moment of joy he has. Being with the cat. I don't know. Am I reaching there?
No, you know what? And it's funny. I found that the cat, and obviously this came before it, but it was very close to watching the Ricky Gervais series on Netflix, Afterlife, where the dog is the thing that's stopping Ricky Gervais basically committing suicide. His wife's died have you watched Afterlife?
No, you've told me to, and I haven't.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. So basically, I won't ruin it, but his wife dies, and it's all about basically him not killing himself.
Oh, okay.
But the dog is there every time he's going to do it or he's going to do something. It's like the devil and the angel. The dog is the thing that just appears and brings him back into the world, and taking the dog for a walk. So obviously I know the crow isn't a living being, but it is like the cat is his conscience in some respects. The moral conscience brings him back.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's such a, I love this story about an anti-hero. And, in our group picture, the one that we had done by Sam, Max is the Punisher, and Max and I have talked about the Punisher before. And he and I already recorded the show that I'm actually waiting to put out until Thanksgiving, because I think it's like the most American book. It's called 100 Bullets, and it's this bloody, violent thing about like gun violence run amok in America. So it's a fantastic book. Yeah. So Max and I already talked about it. But in that, we talk about the Punisher and vengeance, and the idea of like you said, he's not a hero, but to the characters, he is. And in the movie, she's called Sarah, but in this, she's called not Sarah. She's called something else. Sherry is the little girl. Sherry instead of, and I get that because you've already got a Shelley and a Sherry, so I get they changed the name for the movie. But like, he's good to Sherry. Like, he is a hero to Sherry, and he's a hero to the police while he's killing all these bad guys. So I guess there's that next layer of the onion of the crow is at what point in time is what Frank Castle does, the Punisher, right? And some of the stuff Max and I are going to talk about in the 100 Bullets episode, like, what are you willing to do to avenge your family? Like, Eric, you've already said, isn't the hero, but he seems like he's doing something heroic. And what is that about? Like, in America, obviously, especially in Detroit at this time, the idea that the police can't do enough and that crime runs amok and there's crime lords and gang lords and they really control the area. And so it's almost going to take a vigilante. Like I said, the reason that they stop burning down buildings in Detroit is because of a motorcycle gang goes out and protects the neighborhood because the police can't, which is crazy that's like real life. That's how they're not doing vigilante justice. They're not hitting anybody with bats. But what do you make of what Barr is telling us? And is this something that you can relate to there? Like, are there parts of England that are so bad where it's like you could drop the crow there because they need a vigilante to clean up the streets? Or is this just a comment on like America?
No, honestly, no. There's certain places in the UK, like I grew up in Manchester, and as a kid, I'm from a place called Old Trafford, where everyone knows Old Trafford, where Manchester United's football ground is. Let's not talk football, by the way. But
was that a great weekend for you?
It was for Dave, but let's not talk about that. Anyway, I almost deleted him as a friend, but let's not talk about that. So,
okay,
in Old Trafford, there was some bad places when I was a kid, like really bad places. Even you knew basically after a certain point, you'd be stupid to be walking around at that point. Now there was another place right next to Old Trafford called Moss Side. Now, Moss Side is one of the most famous places in the UK for gang culture, guns. It's been like that since the 70s, late 70s, 80s. And that was a bad place. If you walked around there at night, you were in trouble. I was up there, funny enough, yesterday working about 4 a.m, but I'd sort of nipped through. But I'm always looking over my shoulder, even though I grew up around there, and it isn't as bad as it used to be. But then in London, you've got a lot of the inner city places that are bad really bad places again. Birmingham, it's got the gang, because the gang culture doesn't go. It's just that the gun stuff isn't, obviously, we don't carry guns in the UK. A lot of the gangs do, and there is guns widely available, but it isn't something that I would never have a gun. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times I wish I had a gun in the house, because you license firearm, but we don't have that. So I think that's what it is. When I read and watch a lot of American-based things, it's the fact that in the UK, it's pretty much a fist fight, a baseball bat, or sometimes they have a machete. In America, it's like, let's get out the M16. Yeah. I'm John Rambo. I'm taking all you guys down. And I think that's why I love that Americanized film. I don't know, that's not being disrespectful to you. Just from the UK, we all grew up on American movies, TV shows, the Dukes of Hazzard, Fall Guy, all that sort of the A-Team, especially the A-Team. I love the A-Team as a kid. I've still got them all on DVD. I've got literally all of them. So I love them, absolutely love them. But we always grew up with, I'm going to pull a machine gun. I'm not going to shoot you, but I'm going to fire it like the A-Team at your wheels. I'm not going to kill you. That sort of stuff. Yeah. And your car's going to flip 16 times, but you're all going to get out with just a headache like they used to do.
You'll be fine.
Stuff.
Everything will be fine.
You'll be fine. Yeah. Walk it off. But I think this is relatable, Tony, because I've been in situations. I got mugged when I was 15. There's me, my brother, and my mate, and we could look after ourselves. We weren't adverse to, if it sort of went off, we could throw hands, sort of thing. I'm not a tough guy, but we would stick up for ourselves. But we got jumped by about 8 or 9 guys with guns and knives, and that affected me for a long time, for about 18 months. I literally wouldn't go out of the house because I thought I was invincible. And these guys I had a Mega Drive, which is a Sega Genesis, it was called in America, the Sega Mega Drive. I've been at my friend's house. I was literally 100 yards from my house, because he only lived a few yards away, and they collared us inside of this pub, and I'd knife up my brother, because he had a knife up against my brother's throat. I didn't want to do anything. Yeah, I didn't want to do anything. So, because I was like, I don't want, obviously, him getting hurt. I got sort of smacked with this gun on my shoulder, sort of neck area. And don't get me wrong, as soon as it happened, I went home, my dad and my family are terrible. Then my dad was straight out, and my cousin was there the next night. They were trying to find these guys. And he sounds stupid, but as a vengeance thing, Tony, completely segueing. I know who one of the guys was, and I still vow to this day, I've not seen him since I was 15, but if I ever saw him, it doesn't matter how old I am, all bets are off. And he'd probably be like, why is this random guy just
kicking this shit out of me?
Yeah, I'd kick the shit out of him, even now, and I'm getting quite annoyed thinking about it. But it's
I'm sorry,
the one side of it. No, you're not triggering anything, but as a relatable thing to the Crow, I wasn't. Yeah. Touch wood, it's not a family member who's been thingy, but that stuck with me for years, like that sort of thing, because I felt I was invincible and I wasn't. So when you see these things, I love vengeance films, Tony. Yeah. I love them. When someone comes in and goes, you know what, John Wick, the first one is phenomenal. One of my favourite movies for vengeance.
Yeah. I really enjoy the shit out of it. There's actually a comic I'm going to do as a hidden gem coming up called Plastic, and it's about a serial killer who's reformed because he's fallen in love with a sex doll. And then it's totally true. And this gang takes his sex doll hostage, and he loses his fucking mind, and he wipes them all out.
Oh my God. It sounds like I'm going to say this now, Tony. It sounds like the sort of stuff that's on Dave's search history, but
ouch. All right, you said.
I'll know if he's listened to this one. I'll know if he's listened to this one.
He will. Well, he won't have listened to this because it's dropping the day before. So you guys already recorded the next thing. So he'll hear it on Friday morning, and he'll be like, damn it. Or Thursday morning. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting though, because I think that I like that book because exactly what you touch on is it's very, Plastic is honestly, you can see Nobody, how much you love Nobody. There's a lot of that same, the same thing in there. Like in Nobody, the whole thing is like just his girl's unicorn watch, his unicorn bracelet. He loses his mind over that. Yeah. But it is interesting and that's silly, but obviously the unicorn watch or the sex doll or whatever, it's what you went through was really traumatic, and you guys all were harmed physically, but emotionally that's there. And I think that's what this is. And I think that's why vengeance stories are so powerful and why you can get behind what Eric does, and that you can understand that. It's like the idea being almost like the message is, vengeance it doesn't have to die. It doesn't have to, the bad guys don't have to win. And so while this is dark and horrific and there's a lot of blood and a lot of scary, gruesome shit that goes on. And it's almost a hopeful story. And the idea being that somebody is going to be, because in the movie, it's, I guess in both, it's Albrecht is the character. Like, he's out there looking, he's out there hoping, and he's out there doing. But again, it's like, sometimes you have to go outside of, like you said, you guys were getting a posse together to try to go find these assholes the next day. And I'm sure for a long time. And eventually you're like, all right, they've left the area and you haven't found them. But I do think that vengeance is real. And I guess the question I have for you, because you were saying, like, if you saw this guy tomorrow, you just start, kicking the shit out of him. You have no idea why. But is that good? It is like, I'm with you. I love a good vengeance story, but is it good? Is what Barr saying? No, you're saying it is not. It's
not. But from a personal macho side of it, it's like, yeah, you. But he's not the only one. There was about 6 or 7 of them, so I'd have my hands full, Tony.
Sure.
But you hold that. Anybody who's been in that situation, because he just comes on you. You know what? After that, as a kid, you and growing up as a teenager and a young adult, yeah. We all done it. Going to, I'm sure you have fist fights, whatever. You learn from them, but it makes you very cautious. An anxiety side of it. That's probably more for me. It's more to slay a demon than it is to act like a tough guy. I'm not a tough guy, but it's like these things affected me. So when something like that affects you, I think that's what this is showing in this comic is that things stick with you. And this vengeance thing, and I can't believe I've even brought that up because that's like 27 years ago. I'm 42 now, and a 42-year-old man with a family and everything. Why would I want to go and stick one on someone? But he does, because you think, you bastard, you bastard. There,
no, it's true. And obviously what happened to you is nothing compared to what happened in this comic.
No.
But it's real, and that's what I think is interesting about it. And when you think about, again, the religious, the conversation that this comic has with religion is like Jesus comes back from the dead and forgives everybody who killed him. If you believe in that story, that's the story. Yeah. And Eric comes back from the dead and is like, fuck all y'all. And he just slices them up. And what I like about the comic is he's invulnerable pretty much the whole time. Where, and I get it in the movie, that doesn't work. You can't just have a whole movie where it's like, and I get it if it was a series, and I know they did turn it into a series, which isn't very good. But because in the comics, the Crow does come back as different people, because the idea being that, Eric's soul is now settled, so he can rest with Shelley, and that's how it ends. Whereas, other vengeance happens forever. People are constantly being wronged. And so I think, to me, that's what Barr is on about. He's like, look, Jesus, that's all nice. That's a great story that you could come back and forgive the people who killed you. But let's be honest, humans aren't going to do that. And that is an absurd thing to ask, because, like you said, here you are 27 years later, pissed still. And again, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go hit the punching bag for a while after we're done to get it out. But it's because you're right. Being wronged it's something we can't get over. And even if it's not like physically wronged, like you were mugged, but even if it's just like somebody betrays you emotionally or somebody does something. Yes. I talked about this with Blake when he was on, that when I was a kid, I used to be a journaler. I kept all my thoughts, like from 14 on, like every idea I ever had. And then, a former girlfriend of mine read those, like she got hold of those and read them. And it was really hard. I burned them, and it was really hard. So for years and years and years, I couldn't. And it's just a simple thing of writing your stuff down. But then, you put it in a book and you leave it sitting on your desk. Well, that's a trust issue that is broken. And it took me a long time to feel comfortable, with my wife. I could write a note to myself and leave it face up on the counter, and she would walk right past it because it wasn't for her. That's the relationship we have. So I'm in a good place where that trust has been rebuilt, but it took a long time because humans don't forgive people. We are like, you brought up the dog and you bring up the cat in here. It's like you can see when a pet has been mistreated and then it's around. It takes a long time for pets who have been mistreated by humans to then be okay around humans again. They're cautious. They're scared. We humans are just animals anyway, right? I mean, we there's something in our lizard brain that says, I've been beaten, I've been manipulated, I've been hurt, and I can't get over it. And so our gut reaction is to put forth vengeance, because maybe we're lower beings. Is that what we're saying? Or is that just human nature and it's okay?
You know what? You put it so well, Tony. I think. No, you do. You have because it is you think about that, and I feel stupid even. I go and try and lay some guy out for what they. And it wasn't just him, but I know he's the only guy. But in relation to the comic, everybody has somebody in their life who has pissed them off so much so that they would love to seek revenge on them. Not necessarily physically, because this isn't necessarily a comic just based on let's go and pull an Uzi out or a machine gun and then just start taking names or a shotgun. There's more to this comic where it's about people, how they manifest vengeance. For people, it can consume your life.
Right.
You see it, and it's an awful thing. When people lose, and I will not wish this on anybody, when people lose like a child, and it's because of a criminal act, you would never get over that. I could never, touch wood, I just to think, but I'm sure I could never get over that. And I think any rationale, you're one of the most rational people I know. I'm quite rational as well. I do try and take a step back as I've got older. You wouldn't. I'd be happy to serve time to do someone if they did that. But I'm sure you would. And I think that's where there's a better message, there's a wider message than just a film. I'm going to go around and seek vengeance on people. He's playing on you and yourself if you look into it. Like, well, we all have that. And I think it's such a really good way, especially in the first issue, the way they put it together.
Oh, yeah. Because in that first issue, you don't know what the fuck's going on. He just shows up. Yeah. And he's just there in that. And you see him, build his arsenal. And it's almost as though, and I think this is one of the best depictions in the film, especially early on with Tintin, with all the knives that he puts in Tintin, because that's it's like he's relishing in the vengeance. It's like slow, because you said he could easily. It's Detroit in 1989. He could just go get a fucking gun or a bomb and blow him up. It's like he wants to take his time with it because because again, that's the thing. His soul couldn't rest because it needs vengeance. He's so upset he can't even die peacefully because, like you said, these things mentally, they don't leave us. And obviously once you're dead, you're dead. But this is saying, well, some things are so bad, you have to come back. And then he kind of relishes in it. And then the way that you see him interact with Sherry and the scene that's in the book, that's in the movie, scene for scene, is where he grabs Darla and he says, mother is the name for God on the lips and mouths of children. And that scene is so awesome. So here he is trying to do good. He's like getting pleasure from killing, who is it? Fun Boy, who is sleeping with Darla. He's like going to get a lot of pleasure out of killing Fun Boy a lot. But he's also going to save Fun Boy's girlfriend, Sherry's mother, because to him, it's like there's still a line of, I can enjoy this part of doing the bad, but I have to remember, even in the killing and the enjoyment of the vengeance, there's just a smidgen of humanity left in him to save these people because they could be saved. Where it's like, we know, and I think that moment to me is like, that's the thing where you're like, rehabilitation can be real or it can't. Like T-Bird, Fun Boy, Top Dollar, Tintin, and it's Tom Tom in the book, and in the movie they change his name to Skank. And again, because the names are so similar, I'm sure that's why. But they can't be fixed. You notice he doesn't kill Gideon, right? He lets Gideon go, the pawn shop guy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, it's almost as though he's like, I'm giving you a chance to live because maybe you can learn. Maybe this can scare the shit out of you and you can go straight and you can do something better as opposed. And that's why he lets Darla live. That's why he saves some people, so it's like, maybe there's a smidgen in good in people. Not all people aren't all one thing, but some people are so far gone. They've done so much evil that they can't be rehabilitated. And I don't know, that was a long-winded way for me to ask you. Do you think that's true? Do you think that? Because I think that's a question Barr is asking us about, like, when you put people in prison in America, once you're in prison, especially in Michigan, we kind of have this thing in Michigan. The rule is if you've ever done and been in prison for a felony, you're never going to work in Michigan again. Like they make it really impossible for you to be rehabilitated. So once you come out, you're probably just going to have to go back to doing crime because nobody's going to hire you. It's awful. It's an awful rule because it's like, you're 15 and, this kid you talked about, these people who mugged you, like if they were arrested in Michigan, they'd never be able to work in Michigan and to have a felony and that'd be it. Even though they did something stupid when they were 18 years old and now they're 30. Sorry, I can't hire you to work at McDonald's because you committed a crime when you were 18. We don't forgive in America. Yeah. So I was curious, and I feel like that's what this is about. It's like, who can be rehabilitated and who can't be? What do you think? Is that similar? Does that ring true there? Or am I, again, like I'm prone to do stretching?
No. You know what? I think I've watched a lot of the American prison reality stuff as well. 60 Days In, I've watched loads over the years, first 24 hours, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And what I find interesting is in the UK, the sentencing for certain crimes like murder is literally 15 years you can be out with good behaviour, unless you're not, obviously you've killed somebody. So there is something obviously mentally wrong with you, to do that. There is a switch. There's something that triggers that. But people can be out in America. Obviously, I watch the shows. It's like, well, you get life. You never come out if you've killed someone, and like eye for an eye sort of thing. And there's a massive struggle in the UK with that, where you'll get maybe someone who's done fraud will get 10 years, but someone who's a paedophile will get 7 years.
Crazy.
And you're like, how the fuck can that even be comparable? I'm not saying either of the crimes are, they're both terrible crimes. However, if you said to me, what would you have? You would have a murderer, a paedophile, and then you would have some, fraud. That fraud would be bottom of the list for me. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be a 10-year sentence, but if you're a paedophile and you've done things to kids or whatever, you should never come out of prison for me. That's as bad as murder, doing stuff like that. So in the UK, and honestly, Tony, you'll get stuff where people will kill somebody in a car by mistake. Say you get someone speeding and they're acting like an absolute bellend and they're driving at 80 miles an hour in a residential area and they kill someone. They can be out of prison within 3 years.
Yeah.
They're death by dangerous driving or death by manslaughter or, undue care or whatever. Whereas in America, it is literally you fucked for 30, 40 years. You're not going anywhere. And I'm not saying that person shouldn't get that, but it's a different way in the UK. It really is. It's interesting because in America, it's like probably the right sentencing for most stuff. Like, you've done this, you've got to serve your time. That's it.
Right. So. And you're screwed forever. And like, so for those people there in England, once they come out, so that person that you described to was, idiot drunk driving or whatever, and he serves his 3 years, is he going to be able to work again? Is that done? Like, do they feel like you've been rehabilitated and you can re-enter society? Because in America, we don't really, we stick, because that could be, you could be 18, you're a legal adult, you did something stupid, you've been in jail for 18 to 21, maybe you got some education while you're in there. Do you deserve a chance to learn from your mistakes? Because in The Crow, he allows Darla to learn from her mistakes and go be a mother. He could kill her too. She's ignoring her daughter. She's putting her in danger. She's reckless endangerment, all those things. But he's like, and Gideon has, taken the money and done these things. He's like, I'm giving you people the chance to rehabilitate. You get a second chance, but you people over here are too far gone. And so I was curious. So like over there, that person who's done the 3 years, would that person be welcomed back into society or not?
There's a potential that they would be able to get a job and they would be able to go somewhere else, because the checks in the UK for criminal records are only really come into effect when you're working for the government or you're working for the police or like, the health service. Yeah, so I know this is so bizarre. We're getting into this, but I work with someone at my place. Now I work for an advertising company. I'm the maintenance team leader, manager. And a guy I worked with when I still worked on the tools properly, 10 years ago, me and him become good friends. He'd come to our place. He forged his driving license because he'd been banned for 18 months and lost his license for drink driving. But what he did was he had 12 points on his license. So what he did, they wanted a copy of his driving license, photocopy. He came in, took a copy of it with the points on, Tipp-Ex'd it out, then photocopied it. She had nothing on. Now this gets worse. So this guy I worked with, a bit trigger happy, a bit of a temper on him, but we were good friends. He was always like, he's always coming in every day like absolutely fucked. He was doing like 10 Viagra every night and just doing all sorts with his missus, as you can imagine, and then coming in late every day and sleeping. And I was doing most of the heavy lifting and the work and that. He's a proper labour intensive job.
Absolutely,
all the glass and everything and building stuff. And about 2 years into working with him, one of my mates just rang me and went, "You're living with a murderer." And I was like, what? And to this day, this person has never admitted it, but he's the same age as me. And around 97, he got into a fight. He was with two guys, and his girlfriend was pregnant with his lad. His lad's like 20 odd now. This is a genuine story. And he doesn't know this. He told me he got sent down to prison for fighting with somebody and he got 18 months in prison. He actually got 5 years for manslaughter because he had a fight in a taxi. The taxi driver broke. His wife or his girlfriend had a seatbelt across her stomach. She's pregnant. Him and his mates set about the taxi driver. He obviously did it for a reason. He must have been doing something to him. They attacked him. The taxi driver ran across a not a freeway, but sort of like a dual carriageway in the UK. Yeah. So it was 40, 50 miles an hour. And it's actually, Max might even know this because it's named Max's area. It was near where Bolton Wanderers ground used to be. Well, no, it's Farmouth it's called. He chased this. In fact, no, sorry, I said that back. It's near where Bolton Wanderers football ground, Max's soccer team. It's near where their old ground used to be called Burnham Park. He chased the guy. The taxi driver ran off. This guy went back, who he used to work with, attacked the car, absolutely nailed the car, smashed all the windows, everything. I mean, this is about 2 a.m. The taxi driver come back thinking they'd gone. This lad appeared from nowhere, chased them. The guy ran straight in front of the car, nailed the taxi driver. It's such a terrible story, but he never told me that. And then we ended up outside a taxi place where obviously this guy must have worked from. And this lad who was so sure of himself, absolutely, he's like, we've got to go. And I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Then when I found this out, and he to this day told me, we're not great friends now. It's not like a Facebook friend, but he lied about that. He'd actually killed someone inadvertently, manslaughter.
Yeah,
terrible.
That is. And but that's the thing. He was managed to still, but that he was hired.
He's hired because he lied. He never said he had a criminal record.
Oh, he never said he had one. And so
he told me. So I know that. I know I've gone around the houses with the story, but you can easily do that. They say they've got a criminal record. No, most companies can't afford to do a criminal record check on
you. In America, you pay for your own. Like when just to be a volunteer at the public library here, I had to pay $100 or whatever it was, $35 for my background check. When I was as you call it, football, when I was a soccer coach, I had to pay my own money for my own background check. And they're like, if you don't want to be a coach, you're not going to, and of course I'd already, as an instructor, as a teacher, I've had a bazillion background checks. I've been fingerprinted probably more than most criminals. So I don't care. You have to go through all that to do job, like you said, because it's a government job. But that's fascinating. No, I just think it's an interesting look at the way that different, and again, that's part of what this book is saying is like, just like that, people can get away with stuff and nobody's paying attention. And it doesn't link the story you sound, it does sound like he's a young, dumb idiot who.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yes, he was being aggressive, but it's not like he would have, hit him with the tire iron until he steered him into traffic. Yeah. He was trying to beat him up. But it is an interesting look at that. And I think this, here we are an hour in and we're talking about all these things that sort of have nothing to do with the comic, but they do. And that's to me but to me, that's why this kind of artwork is so good. And that's why I think, telling these stories is important is because, here is this story that you can just look at on its face and be like, oh, that's just a creeping ghoul guy who looks like Robert Smith from the Cure who goes around killing people, the end. But there's so many layers to it. And I think that's why it's important to just have a conversation because now people who haven't read The Crow in years can go back and be like, damn, I missed all that. Or now they're going to think about their own stuff and be like, oh, well, here's the thing. And to me, maybe, we do need to let some things go and some things we don't need to let go. And it's this book is asking us to make those determinations about ourselves. Like, what are we willing to let go? Like you said, if you saw that guy, you'd curb stop. You'd snap, right? There's some things you just can't let go. And is that okay? Is that not okay? That's up for us to each decide.
Yes. Yeah. Brilliant, Tony. It's been great.
This is awesome. I know you've got to go because you've got to do work. Speaking of work, you have to go to work. So please, thank you for coming back. I'll see you in 90 more episodes. No,
you will not, Tony. We will make a day. I'm not forgiving you though for Heathers. I'm sorry. That's coming out.
I know. I listened already as the early access.
I know you.
Yeah. I knew you'd hate it. I've known for years that you would hate it. But I appreciate that you heard me out and why I liked it so much. And so I knew you would beat that one for sure. Yeah, there's just some things I was like, it's not like with Blake who he's deliberately giving you bad movies. Like he knows they're bad. And he wants you to feel, and you and Dave do that to each other. I don't know about Death Warrant. I'm not going to say it's his best. I know it's your favorite, but you have to agree it's not his best work.
It probably isn't. We haven't done that yet, Street Fighter. And Universal Soldier I like as well.
I do too. I like Universal Soldier. Here's the thing about Street Fighter is that was Raul Julia's last movie. He was sick. He was sick.
Yes.
And it's like to see, like, does he know what movie he's in? He makes everyone else look terrible. He's so,
yeah.
And I know Jean-Claude's not really a good actor, but watching Raul Julia just give it his all, I just love that performance. So to me, that movie, for everything Jean-Claude does and what he's good at, I think just Street Fighter is the one for me, just because Raul Julia is so amazing. And it's doing, you think, like what Chadwick Boseman did towards the end of his life, and like the things you're doing when you're sick and you're like still giving those amazing performances. You're like, damn, everyone else should try a little harder if these people can do this when they're, you know, when they're like that. But yeah, well, I mean, you guys could just do just the JVCD podcast. You'd have enough for a year. He's done some shit.
Tony, there's only one other podcast I'm doing, and it's Mr. Lauren Avedon.
Oh my God. my brother from another mother, apparently.
You look so like him. We've got to dig that picture. John Hammond's asking about the picture.
Oh, I'll send it. I can send that. Sure, I have.
Send it to him.
Sure, yeah.
Send it to me or whatever. But
okay.
John's asking. He said he've got to see this picture of Tony because you look so like.
I will send it along. I'll put it in the VHS Strikes Back. Thanks. So, all right. Well, tell everybody. Thank you for doing this, my friend. Tell everybody how all about all of your, as you are the king of all media. Christian Phelps, king of all media.
This will be a long one. And so I've got mine and Dave, obviously my podcasting brother. He is unfortunately a Liverpool fan, but we can't hold that against him because he sponsors this weekend and he's never forgiven me and he just keeps sending me messages, taking a mic. So we got other podcasts. It was
an ugly game. Might happen.
Yes.
Watch past that.
Oh my God. I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, sorry. Never mind.
I nearly went to it. I came back from holiday and nearly got a ticket, and because I live right near the ground, I'm so glad I didn't go. Anyway, we have the wonderful Comics in Motion, Mr. 23 Indie Comic Spotlight as well. So get on to the Comics in Motion feed, guys, because there's so many good people in the Comics in Motion family. The VHS Strikes Back, where me and Dave go back and watch films from 2005 backwards, and basically we'll throw in some blockbusters, but if we're not stitching each other up with some absolutely atrocious movies, and everyone else is doing that to us now, which is even better, and I love it. Get over there. And also we have our reality one, CD, well, Chris and Dave's reality cast, but it's called CD Reality Cast, and that one is crazy because we have such...
Are you doing the Bachelorette right now?
Well, we're doing the Bachelorette, Married at First Sight Australia, and Australian Love Island. I've come off holiday. That's why me and Dave are double jabbing.
Good God. Okay.
So I've got 3 podcasts today. You, Dave, I'll do one with Dave. I've got one later with Dave. Yeah, we're doing all of them. So the Bachelorette, everything. I'm ready to go. We're doing the Bachelorette today. We're recording that. But we've got that one. Chris and Dave's Reality Cast. That is a ridiculous juggernaut of a podcast that everyone just loves to talk and bitch about.
So you guys broke big time with that one. You got to be on your own radio show. Come on.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Every week we're on this BBC radio show, and I'm the guy who goes on now. They keep asking for the elusive Dave. I'm like we always say, because I think the guys from Steve and Dan and everyone, they're always saying, they're always saying like Dave's the boss, but I'm like the elusive. I'm not really a boss of anybody. We're all equal, but Dave hates that, but we're also, I'm like the elusive creator of Comics in Motion who just comes on. I like Dave's on everything. He loves it, doesn't he? I'm like the elusive, lazy sort of.
You're not lazy at all.
No, well, if we did podcasts at 4 o'clock in the morning, Tony, I'd be fine. I could do everyone's show, but when it's late at night, I'm usually asleep. But
yeah, I heard when you guys did the big roundtable on Mike's show, you were like, "Listen, guys, it's 9. I got to go to bed." It was just like they talked for like another hour.
Exactly. Wow. I messaged Dave and went, "How long?" He was like, "He went on till about 10:30." I was like, I said, I felt ignorant because I love Mike and we have a good thing with Scott as well. But about that, one other thing to plug in, Tony, and then I'll promise, is my YouTube channel, Phelps Travel Vlogs, where I do all my holiday stuff on there. It's all pretty crappy editing, but I'm getting better as I do it. But it's just basically me, and I'm doing one at the moment for Greece. So I do review the holiday, the hotel, and what we did for that week. If you're interested in stuff like that, and I love YouTube vlogs on holidays and that, then you'll find me there. So thank you.
I will link to it all in the show notes. And so tomorrow on Comics in Motion Network, where this is, you'll listen to, because this is Thursday, tomorrow, you'll listen to the Crow movie. And then on Friday, Dave is allowing the Pop Gorillas and I, who we've reviewed all the Halloween films in order. So there's a massive, all 12 Halloween, like 5 minutes or less review of each films that will be on VHS Strikes Back on Sunday as a Halloween special. So we're getting to cross over. That's my first appearance on VHS Strikes Back, not as a guest, because I was on a couple of times. We did Commitments, of course. You love me because I let you watch the Commitment. We watched the Commitment.
Oh, love it. What a film, Tony.
That was the best. Well, I appreciate you, my friend, and everybody. We're going to listen to you can follow me on Twitter at Tricycle Boombox or go to my website, AR Free, and get all my good stuff. And we're going to listen to The Cure, because how can you not talk about The Crow and listen to The Cure? So we will see everybody next time. Thanks again, Chris.
Take care, man. Bye.